Jai Gurudev, Jai Masters. Everything comes in layers. You talk about peeling the onion, layer after layer. The earth has stratas. Spiritual life has layers. The Buddhists say work at the root, which is the deepest layer, but you have to work your way to that. So let's walk through a few layers. In the Old Testament, I always pick on the Ten Commandments. I'm a nice Jewish yogi. Moses is my man, but the Ten Commandments are a pretty low bar. Here you're talking about don't kill each other, don't steal each other's wives or spouses, don't take the Lord's name in vain, don't lie to each other, don't bear false witness. That's a pretty low bar. I always say, what exactly does God think of you guys that those are the commandments? But that's what it was. Try to behave yourselves because you're a mess. That's what that says. The human race is a mess. So you're going to come down and put a bar way low. Don't do those things. Then Christ showed up. Of course, Christ was Jewish. And Christ taught love each other. That's what you're supposed to do. That's the commandment. Love thy neighbor as thyself. That's very different than don't kill each other and steal and so on. So we've come up a layer. This is on the outside. Then you come up another layer inside, which says, well, why would you want to do these things to each other? What's your motive? What's driving you to kill each other? What's driving you to steal from each other? What's driving you to, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? What is it inside of you? Because your actions come from inside. They don't come from outside. Your motivation is inside. Your drives are inside, all of them. So what is it that's inside? That's the next layer. What is it that's inside that's causing you to behave that way or not behave that way outside? Okay? So we took another layer back. And what you will generally find the teachings as saying, it's your mind. That's what the spiritual teachings teach. You have trouble with your mind, and your mind tells you to do these things. Mind tells you, I like that, and I want it, so I'll take it. I don't like that, and so I'll get rid of it. And it is your mind's thinking that is telling you to act this way. It's not something you're deciding. It's a drive. It's a thought pattern. It's a belief structure. It's something in your mind. And so now at least we've come inside, deeper to the root, instead of just saying, behave, and then you suppress your mind, right? You wouldn't naturally behave. So the question is, why don't you naturally behave? Why is there all this disharmony? Not be harmonious. Well, you're not harmonious. That's the trouble with many of these philosophical leaders. They can come up with a beautiful utopian philosophy, but people are not going to follow it. Why? Because that's not what's going on inside, right? You can try to make them suppress it or cull them out and try to keep the ones that believe in you, but it's not going to do anything. It never has and it never will. So you come inside and you say, not just religion tells you how to behave. It does. It tells you how to behave. Well, why does it have to make you behave that way? Why do I have to tell you thou shalt not kill? Why would you kill somebody? Why would you do that? Don't steal your neighbor's spouse. Don't bear false witness. Why would you do that? Because there's something inside of you that is urging you, driving you, impulsing you to do that. Well, so the next layer, after you work through these bottom level commandments, then somebody sits there and says, well, be nicer to each other and so on. Well, same question. Why are you not? Because, Christ came and went and didn't all change that much, did it? Because the inside did not change. So you can try to make people be any way you want, but they're going to be the way, naturally, the way that the inside is driving them to be. So now we've gone past one layer, then the next layer. Now at least we're inside, where the drive is coming from. And why is your mind, because it is your mind, well, we'll do your mind and your heart, okay? To me, you put those together. There's the psyche, the inner dialogue, the inner expression, the inner emotions. They kind of work together. Your mind says something, your heart feels it. Your heart feels something, your mind says it. They're in cahoots. So I don't want to sit there and tell you it shouldn't be like that. Why? Because it is. I want to ask, why is it like that? That's a much deeper question. That's how you go deeper. Not by asking what do I do about it, by asking why is it that way. Otherwise, you're trying to put something on top of it to make it not be that way. And much of meditation and much of the spiritual teachings are about Control your mind, anchor your mind, have your mind be nicer, do different things with your mind. And your heart should feel love. You know that. Your heart should feel love. Make it feel love. Good luck. Good luck. If it's not feeling love, there's a reason it's not feeling love. Unless you understand that and deal with that, you're just going to suppress. So much of the inner work becomes suppression. And suppression is not spiritual, ever, ever. Well, what do I do? My mind doesn't think in a philosophical way. It thinks in a very selfish, personal way. What do I want? How do I get it? What do I not want? How do I avoid it? Have I missed anybody? That's how the mind thinks. So you want to sit there and say, that's how I am naturally? No, there's another layer back there to see why does the mind behave that way. I would much rather have you work at that next layer than to sit there and feel guilty about what your mind's doing, or try to suppress what your mind's doing, or try to listen to somebody who says this is what your mind should be doing, try to make it be that way, okay? Because that's very, very difficult, and it doesn't last. If you don't deal with the cause, with the root, you're just putting energy on top of something, and it will come back up. Don't worry. They cannot go away that way. So that's where spirituality becomes much nicer. When they don't say to you, you're wrong, you shouldn't think like that, you shouldn't behave like that, you shouldn't do that. Just forget it, you're fine. Now, why is it that way? So, if you look at your mind, which is witness consciousness, you will see it's very selfish. Don't feel bad. You better not blush, because that's how it is. The mind thinks about itself. It thinks about, what do I want? How do I want people to view me? How do I want people to treat me? The whole thing. And then what do I not want? How do I avoid this? That hurt me before. I don't want it to happen again. And you'll start realizing, wow, that is what the mind is doing. It's being personal. It's talking about my hopes, my dreams, my beliefs, my concepts, my views, my impressions, my likes, my dislikes. If I check all those off, you found out I covered about 99% of every thought you have. Now, there are thoughts you can have. Let's make this difference right to begin with so you don't feel resistant. Your mind doesn't have to do that, and your mind doesn't always do that. That is what's called the personal mind. There is an aspect of your mind that is intellectual, that is abstract, that can think about the stars, that can think about inventions, that can think about creativity, that's not specifically about your personal gig. I want you to look at the mind not as, even what I said, don't look at it as the personal mind and the abstract, intellectual, impersonal mind. There is a thing called mind. I go through this in great detail in the new book, Living Untethered. There's a thing called mind. That's like saying there's a computer. The computer is not an accounting system. The computer is not an architectural CAD system. The computer is not a cookbook. The computer is anything you want to do with it. It has all those different programs running in it, but it's still the computer. It's the same computer. It can do all these things. Your mind is the same. The mind is just this enormously amazing intellectual machine that can do anything you want. Your mind is something that creates thoughts. How's that? And the thoughts can be anything you want. The mind can run whatever program you need it to run. One of the programs it runs, and is the major program, is called the personal program. What do you mean? Listen to me. I have had experiences, I'm talking for you, I have had experiences during my life. They have come into my mind. Some of them were comfortable, some of them were uncomfortable, and some of them I couldn't care less. Totally neutral. I don't know you. I don't know your name. I don't know you. But I know of your mind. That I assure you. The ones that are neutral, the white lines in the road, the trees you drive by, the people in New York when you're walking down the street that you don't know, the cars that are driving by on an expressway, they just come and go. They just come on in, go on through. It's called open mind. It's a very high state, very Buddhist state. It's very be here now, by the way. You're be here now about all those things. They're happening, you're experiencing them, and they pass through. They don't cause you trouble, they don't come back, they're not in your dreams. They're just coming in and going through. They're experiences, natural experiences. So you're open. Okay, that's what happens with the neutral experiences. What happens with the bad experiences? What do you mean bad? Who said it was bad? You did. It bothered you. That's why it was bad. So if it comes in and it bothers you, causes disturbance, how's that for a word? It causes disturbance in there. You don't like that. So what do? It's a natural thing. It's not unnatural. If somebody throws something at you, you throw your arms up. You don't have to hit you. If something's coming in from the outside world and it doesn't feel comfortable when it gets in there, you throw your inner arms up. You push it away. You do what's called resist, grab, push, all kinds of stuff. If it's not comfortable, it is very instinctual. It's very natural. Doesn't mean it's right. Natural doesn't mean good or bad. It just means natural to protect yourself. So you're in there throwing up your inner arms, which we'll talk about, your inner hands, and you push it away. That's where Freud's repression and suppression come from. In yoga, we make it even more broader. We call it resistance. Do you resist in there? Come on, I see your pearly whites. Okay, because I'm telling you, almost every minute of your life, you are resisting something. You're just resisting. You're controlling, manipulating, resisting. I don't like this. Anywhere from, this is not comfortable, I don't like it, to, no, I can't handle this. What does it mean I can't handle this? It means I can't let it pass through. It is not comfortable to me. I can't let this be in here. I can't handle it. It's freaking me out. So what do you do with it? I'm going to make it not have happened. You have never, nor has anybody, made something not have happened. You cannot make it not have happened. If it happened, it happened. And if it didn't happen, it's not in there, so don't worry about it. But if it happened, it comes in through your senses, and then you experience it. And so if you sit there and say, I can't handle this, that's intense. You're basically saying, it happened, it's in here, and I can't handle that it happened. You're in trouble. That's not a very healthy state. I'm freaking out in here. So what do? I can't stop it from having happened, but I don't have to experience it. I don't want to experience it. It's a form of denial. I'm certainly not going to let it come all the way in. There's no way this thing's coming all the way in. I'll let some things in. If I love you to pieces and you hug me, I let that in. I let beautiful sunsets in, but I ain't letting this thing in. So what do? Resist. I push it away. Okay? When you push it away, it stays in there. And that's the truth. This is what it means to go deeper. I'm now explaining, yes, we know how the mind is. It's personal. Why? You made it that way. You stored the things that bothered you. They're in there for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 more years, aren't they? They can stay in there your whole life, things that happen in your childhood. So basically, what is the personal mind? It is the mind, this mind that creates thoughts, this very great mind that you can think with, but you stored a collection of things that bothered you. How many? Oh, I don't even want to count. Every single day you do it. The weather bothers you. Is it hot out, guys? Oh, it's so hot. I don't even want to go outside. I can't handle it. There you go. It's stored inside. You can't handle it. You're resisting it. It'll bother you. You get up in the morning. I don't want to go to work. It's too hot. No, you're in air conditioning. But your mind has stored this negative impression. And it's going to come back up. When you resist, you store it. And the collection of your stored stuff is reflected by your personal mind. That's the negative aspect. When things come in you can't handle, they get stuck inside of you because you resisted them. It's very important to understand there is nothing inside of your mind that you didn't keep there. I don't care how traumatic it was. I don't care how intense it was. If it's still in there, it's because you didn't let it go. There's nothing in there but your will that can keep something that's not happening anymore. It's not happening. It's over. It happened 20 years ago. But now why is it still in there? Why is that still in there when you're 55? Because you resisted it. You stored it inside your personal mind, and now it is making up a program within your mind that's playing out itself as to what you like and what you don't like and what you want to do and what you don't want to do, what turns you on, what turns you off, what you look forward to, what you're scared to death of, is a sum total. Skinner said it, the psychologist. People are the sum of their learned experiences. That's not true. There are lots of experiences that come in to pass through, but the ones that you resist are the ones that stayed inside of you. And they built this thing called the personal mind. And it ended up being what I like and what I don't like. So far, I've only talked about negative experience. Let's talk about a positive one. You've had positive experiences. Not a whole lot, by the way. You've had way more, exponential more negative experiences. According to you, by the way. Somebody else liked them, but you didn't like them. You've had way more things happen every day that you are resistant to and that you try to keep at a distance from you than positive experiences that you just, oh my God, I want it to happen again. I can't wait. I've been dreaming since I was little. Something came in, it turned you on. It made a positive experience. Do you let it pass through? Absolutely not. Why? I like it. I want to keep it. Now you're not trying to push it away. It stays in for that reason. Now it stays because you cling to it. That's the Buddhist word. You cling to it. Oh, I remember it was so beautiful. The first time he told me he loved me. And so you have all these personal experiences that got stuck inside of you. But they didn't get stuck for any reason other than you did it. Your will, your consciousness, you in there, you lives in there. You resisted what was not comfortable to you, and you clung what was comfortable to you. So now you have built the personal mind. It's the same as the rest of mind. It's all one computer. But this is the program that it runs. What program? What I like and what I don't like. What I want to happen again, what I better make sure never happens again. How I get it to happen again, how I make sure it doesn't happen again. Am I getting the topics that generally go on in there? How should I dress so that it happens again? How should I dress so that it never happens again? How should I talk? How should I carry myself? Where can I move to? Where should I live? Every single thing is based upon this program that you stored inside, the sum of all this stuff that you kept from the past, and it made what Freud called the ego. That's what the ego is. Freud's entire id, ego, and superego are part of the personal mind. He didn't talk about the intellectual mind that creates. The id doesn't create. It's a caveman, cavewoman, base level stuff. The superego sort of doesn't create. It just judges you. You shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have done it. Don't do that. And the ego is, what do I want? How can I live that I can be okay? How can I get what I want? Where's engineering? Where's medicine? Where's any of that stuff? He didn't deal with that stuff. He dealt with the personal mind. See it? I have to make sure you understand. You have a whole nother layer of mind. A whole, totally expansive. Put the James Webb telescope up there. Give me a break. Who are you? You learned that there were atoms and learned how to split them. Who are you? That's not the personal mind. So basically, you have this part of your mind that you have programmed because you held this stuff together, and it is the sum of your learned experiences. It is the stuff that you held on to because you couldn't handle it. It's the stuff you held on to because you liked it, and now your whole life is aimed at that. That's what it's about. All right. So when you come inside and you start talking about the layer that made you act the way you did, so that we can leave all that outside stuff. We've transcended that. You're inside, and you see, I see now why I hurt that person. I see now why I left this person. I see now why I left my job. I see now why I said what I said. That's witness consciousness. You just have stepped back. That's a whole other layer. You step back, and you see this personal mind, and you see that it never stops. It judges everything. It has its concept, views, opinions, preferences, hopes, dreams, everything. Now we're going to talk about how to go to the next layer. You can't go to the next layer when you think you're right. And you do think you're right. The personal mind always thinks it's right. That's a very important thing to understand. Of course it thinks it's right. It has experience behind it. I actually experienced that. I know it made me feel good. I experienced that. I know it made me feel terrible. I'm not making this up. These are my experiences. Well, haven't you had other experiences? Of course not. I only had the experiences I had. You only had the experience you had. You didn't have the experience you didn't have. Therefore, your personal mind is made up of how much of the universe? 0.00000000001 to the minus 10 billionth. Any moment, you're experiencing what comes in through your senses, right? Are you experiencing happening outside right now? You experience happening in Gainesville? Experience happening at 1502 Northwest 33rd Street? That house? No. How many things you're not experiencing right now? Come on, count the number. I want to know. 700 billion zillion. And I don't mean just in Gainesville. The whole planet and then all the universe. How many experiences are you missing every moment of your life? That's the only thing you picked up is this little nothing that you're experiencing. But that's all I've got. Then what you've got is statistically insignificant. I always liked that term in school. Statistically insignificant. I know who's going to win the 2024 election. Why? I asked Faith who she's going to vote for. Yeah. So, well, that's who's going to win. Why? That's my data. It's my data point. I have 100% correlation. I'm a statistic man, you know. I know, I'm not stupid. All right? So that's what you have inside your head. You only have the nothing that you experienced every moment of your life. And that's what you got. Therefore, you think you're right. Because every single thing inside of you agrees with you. Well, of course it does. It's the only thing it ever saw. If you take the most brilliant computer that ever was built, ever, some super cray computer, and put in a little bit of data and ask it a question, and then ask it again and again and again and again and again, the same question, and say, I have 100% agreement for the smartest computer that ever was. Of course you do. It's the only data that's in there. You didn't change the data. It's going to give you the same answer every single time. So is your mind. That's the data it picked up. It formulated an ego, what I like, what I don't like, who I am, what I believe in, how people should treat me, what it should be like when I get old. I like that one. When I'm 80, I should look like when I'm 20. And by the way, I shouldn't die. I don't like thinking about death. I don't like when people die. It doesn't make me feel good. So I don't think about it. It doesn't exist. Oh, that's just wonderful. So you've made up this little world inside your head based upon the sum of your learned experiences. Like I said, is nothing. That's the personal mind. Just what you picked up and what you did with what you picked up. How you put it together. And that is what the ego is. That's Freud described the ego. So I like Freud. I mean, I like the masters who saw the whole. I go for that instead. But Freud said one way that psychology explains Freudian concepts, right, is the id is your animal self. It's the base drives. It's like you got all this stuff coming in from down there, don't you? There's an animal living in there. You know that. And then you have a superego that society made sure they put in there so that the animal wasn't running everything. And then he said what ego is in between the two that attempts to make peace, attempts to find a way. I'm okay. If I do this and I don't do this and then it's this and that, I can find a place that's not at war inside myself. So basically, that's the personal mind. That which got built, and it didn't get built, you built it. I didn't put the data in there, no, but you clung to it. You grabbed it and said, I was married to a man named Al, and he was a complete idiot. I trusted him, and I shouldn't have trusted him. I'm never going out with another Al guy. Just leave me alone. Okay, some of your learned experiences. Somebody else married Al. It was a beautiful experience. Now go argue with each other. That's what Lao Tzu said. A wise man never argues. For what purpose? If you're as deep as Lao Tzu, you understand that's what you're arguing. Go argue about Al. You're not going to win anything. You understand that? There's no win. This person had that experience. They think it's absolutely true. And you had that experience. Go argue. Go argue against the entire Empire State Building they built inside their head throughout your entire life. And you're sitting there talking to the person for 5 minutes. So that's a layer. I went through very quickly. The personal mind is what causes you to behave the way you behave. You go to a party, you were looking forward to it, you go in there, and all of a sudden, I don't know, something happens, they're not vegetarian, or the music is something you don't like, and your mind says, I'm not comfortable, I want to leave. And you leave. Or a sister says, I don't know, it looks like there's going to be some interesting people here. I like the music, and I like this thing, the architecture in the house is beautiful. And then you stay. Believe me, if you don't know it yet, you do what your mind tells you. The trouble is, you think you are your mind. You think that voice inside your head says, I don't know, I really loved him when I first met him or her. I really loved them and it was really perfect, but I don't know now. I don't know. And you think that's you talking. That's not you talking. That's the sum of your learned experiences. You've had some experience that made you be that way about a man or be about slurping soup, the example I always use. You've had experience in your life, and they start questioning everything, don't they? That is not you talking. That is the personal mind talking. The mind talks by itself, doesn't it? Go watch it in the shower. Watch when you're driving. Watch when somebody else is talking to you. Watch what you're doing in there. You're not listening to them. You're talking about what they're saying. I don't know. Do I believe in that? I don't really see it the way they do. It's talking in there. Your mind reacts. You stored all this stuff. It's not comfortable in there. It's not natural that all this stuff be stuck in there from the past. What's natural? Be here now. That's what's natural. Here's an experience going on. It comes in. You process it. And then there's the next experience. Otherwise, when an experience comes in, you can't process it other than to cling to it or push it away. And you miss the next experience. You gave so much importance to the fact that you saw a rattlesnake when you were out on a hike, that for 2 years, every time you go out on a hike, you look for rattlesnakes. Well, why are you hiking? You know, there's trees, there's all kinds of nice things to see, but you don't see them because you kept this impression inside your head, and it keeps coming back up, and that goes for everything. And so you basically realize, I am not my mind. I am the observer, the witness, the experiencer of my mind. Now you're ready for the next layer, and that's why I like to talk to you. But I can't get past this one unless you come with me. Do you realize all that talk in there? Anything your mind says is not you. You are the one that's aware that the mind said it. You come to me and say, Mick, I can't meditate, my mind just won't shut up. I'm going to tell you that's really great. Who is in there that notices the mind won't shut up? That's the next layer. It's not a matter of putzing around with the mind. There's a reason the mind is saying what it's saying. Everything your mind says, there's a reason. It's because the stuff you stored in there is trying to release, is trying to come back up. And so if you're in there messing with the mind, it's no different than being out there messing with the world, which is what we're doing. If I can't handle what my mind is doing, what I do is go out in the world and make sure you behave a way that makes my mind feel good. I try to manipulate the outside so that I'm comfortable inside. Why? Because I can't handle my mind. And so basically, eventually you catch on, which is a big eventually, but we're going there, to where you realize, I am not my mind. You just described the mind. I see where it comes from, and I see all these past patterns coming back up. And yes, I've developed a self-concept, it's called. What is a self-concept? It's not the self, it's a concept of self. It's a thought pattern that I built inside myself that lets me feel somewhat comfortable about the experience that are going on. Not totally comfortable, because there are lots of experiences that can go on that I'm not comfortable with. How about you? And there are lots that I think might go on that I won't be comfortable with, and that's where worrying comes from. I don't know if you get it, but just built this whole thing in here that is very difficult to live with. And so now you know where it came from. That's where it came from. You built it. By repressing, suppressing, clinging, is built all this stuff in there. Then you put it together like a puzzle. Isn't it cute? Put it all together like a puzzle and say, hi, this is me. So it's a concept of self that you put together to try and be okay inside. If it's not working, then either you're not okay inside and you're suppressing, you get depressed and all kinds of things, or you try to change it so that you'll get better feedback and be more comfortable, and there's your life. You have devoted your life to this thing you built inside that is difficult to live with. Why is it difficult to live with? Why is the mind so difficult to live with? Your mind has put together these past experiences that you had. They're your past experiences, they're nobody else's. Nobody else had the experience you had. Nobody. Nobody ever did. Nobody ever will. Just each moment you had these experiences. Nobody had those. Even if we're in the same room, you're looking for a different angle. You came with a different opinion, so you experience it differently. Every single thing, and then put them together linearly every single second throughout your life. Nobody ever came close, did they? So why is it so difficult to live with? Because you think you're right. I can't express that enough. I remember the first time I saw that, I looked at him and I said, who are you in there that thinks you're right? It shouldn't have rained today. Oh, really? What are you, a meteorologist? You studied all the weather patterns for months, and you know it's wrong. It should not have rained today. No, it was your birthday, and you didn't want it to rain, and that's why it shouldn't have rained today. Who are you? It's not true that it shouldn't have rained just because you didn't want it to. It's not true that he shouldn't have said that just because I can't believe you said that. I never thought you would say something like that. Who are you? What difference does it make what you thought? That's what he said. All the sum of his learned experiences came out in that sentence. You don't have those experiences. You never even close. You met him 2 weeks ago. You liked him. Now all of a sudden you know what he should say. You know what he shouldn't have said. You think you're right because it's the only frame of reference that you have is the sum of your learned experiences. Now I'm telling you, nobody else had those experiences. So who are you sitting in there saying what's right and wrong and good and bad and what they shouldn't have said? And I can't believe you said that. This is, I trusted you. I like that one the most. I trusted you. I trusted that you wouldn't say something like that. What do you mean you trusted them? You trusted them to be the way you made up that they were. Your frame of reference saw this person that reminded you of John Wayne, and he was kind of an interesting character, and you didn't think he wore a ball cap, he wore a cowboy hat. I'm trying to pick something that won't step on your toes. So what you mean when you say, I trusted you, is I trusted that you would be the way that my mind made up that you would be. Otherwise, what you're saying, I really like. I trusted that you would be yourself. But that's not what you mean, is it? I trusted that you would act in accordance to some of your learned experiences, and I would be able to be okay with that. That is not even close to what you mean. So now we're getting right down to reality, aren't we? You have built this model. It's called the personal mind inside your computer mind, and it runs all the time. Why? Because it doesn't want to get hurt and it wants to feel good. It's kind of natural. Pleasure-pain principle. I'd rather feel pleasure and I don't want to feel pain. And these are the experiences I've had, therefore everything should be the way I want. That's what you did inside your head. That didn't happen outside. It has nothing to do with the outside. outside hasn't happened yet. It's like a motion picture that flows in front of you. It's the result of all the force that make it be the way it is. It rains when it rains, and people say what they say, and this happens, and that happens. And if you study history, you'll see why they happen. They have their own history, don't they? Every single thing, and there it is. That's not going to match what you made up. What you made up is based on your personal past experiences. This has nothing to do with that. Nothing. The world unfolding in front of you has nothing to do with your past experiences. It's all new. The atoms that made up your past experiences are not there anymore. These are the ones. Here they are. Here they come. Doo-doo, doo-doo, choo-choo, and it passes by. But you don't let it pass by. You look at it through the lens of the sum of your learned experiences. You're looking at the present through the lens of your past stuff. Not even your past, just the stuff you stored from your past. It is not going to match, is it? And that's why you're anxious. That's why you worry. That's why you have tension. That's why you're not happy. That's why you get depressed. That's why all these things happen, because you know there's not a chance that that thing by itself is going to unfold the way you want it to. How honest do you want to have a discussion? That's an honest discussion, and that includes your relationships. You know that the probability someone's going to be exactly the way you want them to be when they come home from work is very low. So you have to sit there and manipulate and control and try to create situations that let it make it be the way you want. It's a lot of work, isn't it? You want to call that having fun? That's not fun. That's why Buddha said all of life is suffering. He didn't mean you broke your arm all the time. He means you're in there doing that. I don't know if you're rich, poor, male, female, sick, healthy, young, old. You're still doing that stuff, aren't you? You're in there attempting to be stable inside by putting all these pieces together and saying, this is who I am, and this is what's right, and this is what's wrong, and then looking out into the world and hoping it'll match. Because what happens when it doesn't match? You freak out completely. Or so it does match. You get all excited. So now you have a foundation now that is the next layer. All right? What's the next layer? The next layer is very beautiful. The next layer we call witness consciousness or mindfulness. You are aware that that's what's going on. That's a very deep state. I am aware that this thing in here that's talking to me, my mind, is the sum of its learned experiences. Things have to be the way I like for me to be okay. And if things are not the way I like, I'm not okay. If things are the way I like, I'm okay. And therefore, you all of you, by the way, should be the way I need you to be so that I'm okay. Waking up means you step back and you see that's what's going on. What we just talked about, that's what's going on inside of me. Okay, what can I do? Is there deeper? Of course there's deeper. You're deeper. You who's watching it is deeper than what you're watching. You who's watching the mind be like that, you who's watching the ego get upset because somebody said something you don't like, are deeper than the ego. You take a step back. You woke up at a deeper level. That's the answer. Now we're getting back to the root. The root is you start looking at it and you realize I am the conscious observer, the witness, the awareness that sees that the mind is doing this and that the heart is doing this. Don't you get into this 60s thing that the heart is so pure and it's all about love. Yeah, it is about love, but not the love that everybody has to be the way you want them to be so you can love them. That's just as personal as everything else. And the fact that you can feel love when someone's exactly the way you want, they're worshiping you and saying really, really nice things to you, I'm very impressed. Not. The love that they mean when they say love is the one that is transcendent to the personal. That regardless of how a person is behaving, you have compassion. You understand. You have a depth. You understand. You're grown up. They're children. And they're behaving like children. You just understand. They haven't woken up. They haven't woken up. They're busy being in their mind. When you step back, the love that you experience at the deeper level is called transcendental. It's called unconditional. That's a better word. It's unconditional. No matter what is going on, no matter how they're behaving, no matter what they're saying to you or to anybody else, there's love in there. Now, from that place, can you bring about change? That's the only place you can bring about change. You can't go head on against somebody's mind. They have their own experiences. Like you guys are arguing this side and that side. Have you noticed you don't get anywhere? You notice it just goes back and forth? Because unless you change the seat of consciousness, it's not going to change. And so basically this awakening that yoga brings about, that spirituality brings about, that meditation brings about, that depth brings about. If we all were to wake up, that's John Lennon, okay, imagine all the people All right? The only way it's going to happen is when they stop hanging out with their mind. And that is not an easy thing to do. How do you bring that about? How do you change the world? See if you can learn how to not listen to your mind. If you can learn how to transcend your mind, you're one step closer to being able to help others learn how to transcend theirs. If you can't transcend your own mind, and you believe you're right, and you have all this anger and anxiety and hate and all this stuff going on inside of you because things are not the way your mind wants it to be, you're just part of the problem. You're not helping anything. The answer is always to step back at the next level. So the next level is consciousness. I am aware that my mind is having a problem. I'm not having a problem. I'm aware that my mind is having a problem. I am aware that my heart hurts. I don't hurt. I'm aware that my heart hurts. I'm aware that my heart just popped open and I feel all this attraction and all this love. I don't. I'm aware that that is what's going on in my heart. Who am I? A seed that never changes. I am the one consciousness that sees when it feels love, that sees when it stops feeling love, that sees when it agrees with something, that sees when it disagrees with something. It's the same consciousness. That's the step back. That's the root. That's who the real I is. The self, the Atman, the soul. The consciousness that's inside, noticing all of this. In the new book, I go very deep into this in Living Untethered, and I ask a very simple question. Were you in there yesterday? Were you in there yesterday watching your thoughts and feeling your heart? Were you in there a month ago? Were you in there 10 years ago? Were you in there when you were 5 years old throwing a tantrum because you weren't getting what you wanted? Were you aware when you looked in the mirror when you were 10? Did you in there see a reflection in the mirror? Did the reflection look the same as it does now? Was it the same you looking? You just get down to these beautiful, beautiful questions until you realize you have always been in there. You are the consciousness that's aware of what you were aware of. So the mind may be the sum of your learned experiences. The consciousness is what is attaching itself to those experiences, that is looking at those experiences, that is owning those experiences. It doesn't have to do that. The consciousness is capable of being observant of the fact that the mind is doing its thing, the heart is doing its thing, and the world is doing its thing. What are you doing? Being aware. I'm being aware. Now when the moments change, there's something you're aware of. They don't freak you out. But they made my mind say something negative. You noticed. So the world comes in, your mind gets negative, the world passes by, and the negativity passes by. Is that okay with you? Absolutely. Why can it not be? It's called reality. Reality passed by. It hit my personal mind. I still have one. Still hit the personal mind. And it's going through. Are you okay with that? Is who okay with that? You who noticed. Do you notice your mind gets upset? Do you notice your emotions can get weird? Can it get real weird in there, like caustic and shaky? Yes or no? You notice, don't you? The question is not whether you notice. You do notice. The question is, what do you do about it? Now we're at a deep level. What do you do about the fact that something has happened outside that hit your mind, the sum of your learned experiences, in a way that made it feel weird inside? What do you do about it? And the teachings, I teach them very deeply. The answer is the highest thing you can do is relax. What do you mean? Relax. The first thing you do, you in there that notices, is accept that that happened. People write me, they say, yeah, well, what if something terrible happened? You're supposed to accept it? No, your first act is to realize this actually happened. Denying that it happened doesn't help anything. It happened. Can you stay seated in a seat of clarity, of awareness, and notice this happened? And this thing down here is getting very upset about that it happened. Can you relax for a moment and then deal with it? Don't not deal with it. Of course you deal with it. You interact with the world, but you do it from a place of clarity, not from a place of personal mind. All you're going to do then is cause somebody else to fight back. It doesn't work if you haven't noticed. So the first thing you do is you relax. You find peace. There, okay, fine. It happened. Inside of me doesn't like it, and I'm going to look and see what I could do to help. Imagine all the people living life at peace. If people did that, even though we have different insides, if the first thing we do, because guess what's not different? The consciousness. Now we're getting very deep. The consciousness is not different. It's called consciousness. It's aware. The consciousness that's looking at your thoughts is the same consciousness looking at somebody else's and somebody else's. Everybody. That's where the oneness exists. There's just one consciousness, but it's staring at different minds and different hearts. So when you can step back and realize, I am the consciousness watching mine, they're the consciousness watching theirs, there's a chance. There's a chance of unity. There's a chance of coming together. And so from that seat, peace can take place. Well, what about if other people aren't awoke? What happens is, we're not going to all wake up at the same time. You step back and realize, if you have managed to evolve, that is evolution, into a deeper place within you, you should be part of the answer, not the problem. It's called compassion. Buddha said, the highest human emotion is compassion. You know, few people understand why he would say that. Higher than love. Compassion. It means you are clear enough to understand why it is the way it is. Doesn't make you angry. Doesn't make you freak out. You're not fighting. All right? I understand why you see it the way you see it. I used to also see it the way I saw it. And then you can work with people. You can raise it up. You can be part of the solution. These are the layers. I worked through them, didn't I? One is, don't do that. You'll go to hell forever. And the other is, well, how about we do this? I mean, Christ, he said to the Jewish people, right, he was Jewish, he said, I've not come to change a letter of the law. Meaning the Torah, all the writings. I haven't changed not a letter of the law. But instead of telling you, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, I'm going to tell you what to do. And that's love. Love your neighbor as yourself. That was the message. It was the next layer. But it doesn't happen unless people change. The mind did not change, right? Because he said that. And so then you come back and you start to realize, my problem is not what I'm doing or saying, it's why I'm doing and saying it. And then you're looking inside. You brought it inside. And now I see why I'm doing and saying it. Because I built a personal mind in there that thinks it's right. Well, then what's the next layer? Once I'm comfortable with my own personal mind, I see him. I see he has problems. I see his preferences. I see he judges. I see all that. Who sees that? That's the great secret step. Who sees that? And you start to center on the consciousness, on the awareness of being. And that's where the oneness exists. That's when they talk about union and oneness. And then I always close in the same place. It's time to stop. We built it back to there. Now what? If you get back there and get comfortable back there, what does that mean? Just keep relaxing. Can you handle everything that happens and what it does to your insides? Can you handle it? Can you handle the ups and the downs and this and that and just relax and deal with it, but from a place of depth, of consciousness? What will happen is you'll start to feel joy. Why would I feel joy? That is the nature of your being. The nature of consciousness is Satchidananda, eternal conscious ecstasy. It has a nature. It's aware of things, but it has its own nature. Its nature is ecstasy, total, eternal ecstasy. And you start feeling that. That's how the masters know that that's that way. You start feeling that all the time in your life. Just these upward rushes of beautiful energy pulling you up into it. And so it's so attractive that your consciousness wants to go there instead of wanting to look at your personal mind. It then becomes very easy to let go of yourself. Because this is nicer than anything. Ramana once said that. At some point, what's going on inside of you is nicer than anything that can come in from the outside. You reach that point where you start feeling that joy, that ecstasy, the supreme unconditional love, and your consciousness falls back into that. And it will start to pull you up. That's called the ascent. And it's not a matter of forcing this or this technique or that technique. It just pulls you up into it. And the great ones let go. That's a very deep state. Christ said you must die to be reborn. You must let go of your personal self to be able to pull back into the spiritual self. And what happens? I always stop with Meher Baba. Meher Baba said, when I reached that state, it was like my drop of consciousness that was busy looking down at me fell back into an ocean of consciousness. Find the drop when it falls into the ocean. Never again. That's called merger. The word yoga in Sanskrit means union. The union of the Atman with the Paramatman. The The union of the individual consciousness that's looking at your individual mind and heart falls back into the source of consciousness. And you all have a name for the source of consciousness. God, that which always was and always is. And the great ones teach you, Christ said, my Father and I are one. All of you are in that state, but you're busy looking at your personal mind. Now you understand the solution to every problem that ever existed in the history of all of humanity and never will. You are the solution to evolve and release back to the impersonal, to the deeper part of your being. All right, so we did some of the layers. I hope you understand these things. Jagrative.